My name is Tatiana Kovai, and this is podcast Happy at Work. In our podcast, we discuss different topics. And today we will focus on the topic of the employer branding. And our guest is Susanna Rantanen from Finland. Hi, Susanna.
Hello, Tatiana. How are you? And how are everyone out there?
I'm fine, thanks. And before we are starting, please, could you share your professional way with our audience? I think people should know the hero of our podcast.
All right, thank you. So my name is Susanna Rantanen, and as I said, I come from Finland, and I'm one of the leading global employer branding influencers. And I've been an entrepreneur in the field of employer branding and other talent marketing since 2010, and have also developed my own employer branding method. It's called the Magnetic Employer Branding Method, and I'm currently writing a book about it, which should be out by the end of this year. And maybe some of you know me from my podcast, Building a Modern Employer Brand, where I talk about how to build that modern magnetic employer brand on a weekly basis. However, Tatiana just asked me, like, so how's your podcast? I was like, it's on a break right now because I have to scrunch my book for the editors by the end of this month. So hopefully I'll stay within the schedule, and we can get back on the podcast soon as well.
Susanna, my first question for you is, what is modern employer branding for you?
For me, it's many things, but I would say that first of all, it's about the talent, the employee or the job seeker. So it's not about the employer. I'd like to use this phrase, it's not about you, it's about them. Secondly, modern employer branding is about employer branding, building a brand. It's not about promoting job opportunities. It's not about campaigns. It's literally about building consistently a brand that impacts and evokes emotions in the audience. And then thirdly, modern employer branding is about using whatever is the most sort of modern means to getting that word out there, and being able to reach those target audiences, being able to persuade them to get to know the brand, connect with the brand and the people in the organization, and so on. So I would say that these are probably the three most important aspects of why I call it modern employer branding. But I have to say that regardless of calling it the modern employer brand, the actual method, the magnetic employer branding method, is based on two sciences. The other one is the science of storytelling, which is over 2,000 years old, so that's not modern. And the other one is the science of persuasion, which also that has been studied and researched for nearly 100 years now. So even though I talk about modern employer branding, there is a scientific background that is very, very old. But I guess it's the way to and use it in the modern world, or those sciences, use those in the modern world.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned what is important for me, what employer brand, it's not about you, it's about them, it's about your audience. What is the great mistakes you see on your way is an employer brand professional? Because, for example, why I mentioned this, your idea, I saw a lot of companies who tell a lot about themselves, but forget about the employees, forget about candidates, about their needs. They told what they think could be important. What is the great mistakes you met in your professional life?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes, and this doesn't apply only to employer branding, this applies to recruitment marketing, this applies to internal communication, and it applies to business marketing as well, other business marketing, business to business or business to consumer marketing. So I think that the greatest mistake of all marketing is that we assume that our target audience, be it our employees, be it our job seekers or our customers, that they are also massively interested in us and what we offer when they're not. We can all relate to that and put ourselves in that position, thinking like, are we also massively interested in any random company's marketing message, their tool, their products, their services, or their job opportunities? Of course not. We are only interested in them if those are relevant to our needs and can solve a problem that is acute in our life right now. The problem can be like, I want to go on a holiday and I don't know which hotel to choose, or it could be I'm building a house and I need finances for that, or it could be that I need a job. So there's different types of problems that people worry about and seek solutions to, and the way to approach marketing, we should, anyone working in marketing should be very conscious about why would anybody out there be interested in what we have to say. And so that's, I think, one of the most significant marketing mistakes, that we talk about us and our products and services like there was nothing else in the world, like everybody wanted to hear. The second is very connected to this first mistake, and that's about going right into the need, our need. So we kind of, a lot of marketing is, and communication also, is about sort of opening our mouths when we have a need. So we need to sell something now. We need to hire someone now. We need to inform people right now. We feel that they need to know. We need them to know right now. So there's none of that sort of rephrase where we kind of pave the way, pave this audience, prepare them for our message. So that, I think, is the other great mistake. Both of those mistakes, if they deliver any value for that marketing message or campaign, it's so small that there's a lot of potential lost. So I like to advocate, storytelling, and especially business storytelling, because it shifts the roles. So when we think about wanting our audience to know about our workplace, our organization, we want to make sure that the way that we address it will resonate with the target audience immediately. And we kind of invite them into that employer branding story so that they can see that they could have a role in it. They can envision themselves as part of that. I think those are two very big mistakes. And then the third mistake is very specific to employer branding, and this is the lack of awareness of what branding means. And I like to call employer branding as a marathon, as opposed to recruitment campaigns as a sprint. So we all know that some of us are really, or our bodies are more tuned to running sprints. And for some of us, we are very good with long distance running, or the same applies to selling. Some of us are really good at sort of this like a long-term stays, like slow sales, and some of us just don't have the patience for it and need to like get the results immediately. So there are two very different practices, and unfortunately a lot of employer branding is seen as campaigns that drive applications, and that's not employer branding. That is recruitment marketing, and both are equally important. So it's not about that. It's just that when you mistakenly believe employer branding to be the same as recruitment marketing with with specific content or a lot of content around it, you are just leaving so much potential employer brand opportunity on the table and not leveraging that as an option. So I know that, like, for example, in the US, they are very advertising focused still on employer branding and connected very tightly still with talent acquisition. I know that in the Nordics, where I'm from, we are more advanced in employer branding and have been sort of incorporating the idea of branding longer than maybe in many of the other countries in the world. But I'm saying that it's about maturity, because when I started to build the employer branding domain in Finland in early 2010, it was all about recruitment marketing here as well. So it's been a process of sort of educating the market and giving them very practical and concrete examples of what you can gain. And what does employer branding mean? And how does that differ from marketing? And when should you be branding? And does your organization even need an employer brand or not? Because not every organization does. So
I want to ask you about storytelling. I visited one conference in Istanbul some years ago. It was very interesting idea what we are not only the storyteller, we are a story builder. But on the other hand, I discuss with my colleagues from HR about storytelling, and they said it's so difficult to find the ideas. We just only can talk about our employees and what any other ideas we could use for storytelling. What is your ideas, proposal, maybe your approach? How company could create the true and relevant stories about their employer brand for building connections, the audience?
Yeah, I think that based on your description, they probably misunderstood what storytelling means, because you can use any kind of idea and apply storytelling to. It's just a scientific way of providing information, as opposed to providing information in the form of data, for example. So it's a narrative type of structure. So ideas, and I think that it's a very common idea, or a very common sort of problem that we often discuss with our audiences and clients as well. Like, where do I get the ideas? I think that ideas generation for employer branding is extremely difficult if you don't have a strategy behind. Because when you do have a strategy and you have it clear in your mind and in your sort of plan, like what are the desired employer branding perceptions that we want to build in our market, and how do we want to be known in the eyes of our audience, and how do we want to differentiate ourselves from our competitors? When you start from that, and you understand, like, okay, if this is the perception that we want to build, then we need to talk about it a lot. So we need to sort of turn that into a talking point that our audience hears about when they are in connection with us, so that they learn to connect that topic to us, or that perception to us. And then it's a matter of so how are we going to talk about this idea? What could be the angles? And can we provide stories in some of those angles? So I think that they probably misunderstood what storytelling is, because there are no like separate ideas that are for storytelling only. You can explain the same thing, same topic, or same subject, or same answer to a same question in the form of an infographic or a picture or a video or a podcast episode, or you can draw it, you can create a story of it, or you can do a cartoon about it. So it's just an expression, an expressive way of sharing information. And storytelling always has characters. So stories always have characters. So you have the hero of the story, then you have the guide of the story, and then you have the villain, which can be a person, or it can also be a problem. So it doesn't have to be a human character. It can be just something really awful, like in movies it could be someone's dying of a serious illness, or their child gets kidnapped, or something like that, or there's a virus spreading in the world, which is a villain that is not a person. And then in a storyline, you have these characters, and then you have the vision of the positive ending, whereas it would be like, well, this hero will save the world, and this virus will disappear, or they will find the child, and the child will be returned home safely. And then there is the negative vision of the end, which is then obviously the bad ending, the ending that you don't want to see in the movie. And then this guide character, which is always portrayed, for example, in movies as the best supporting actor. This guide character has a plan for this hero character, and this hero character cannot solve this problem or can't get rid of this villain without the help of this guide. Mm-hmm. And the guide provides them with a plan. You do this, I support you, and that way, if you follow this plan, you will get that positive outcome. So that's the structure of a story that we can apply in the business world and in employer branding as well. And then it's just a matter of finding or figuring out, like, do we want to tell a career progress story, or do we want to tell the story of our business, or do we want to tell the story of how we digitalized our business, or how we innovated a new product for the market, or do we want to tell a story of a new employee during the onboarding of the first 4 months, or what is it? But the story always needs to have that elephant in the room touched, like literally touched. So many of the content that companies are willing to publish, they only most often prefer to talk about just the good things. And the whole point of storytelling is that you actually elaborate the bad side, like the failures and the mistakes and the pain. You really like bring it up so that the audience can really feel it in them, like shit, like this, sorry, this I can feel it, because then the outcome, the victory of it, will feel 1,000 times more emotional. And the reason why storytelling is scientific is that it influences or impacts our brain chemistry in a different way than any other form of communication. But it requires this talking about like the mistakes and the heartaches, and really like drowning in it and really elaborating it, and then bringing out like how we got away from it, how we, how that's now, how we're not there anymore, how we got the beautiful end result. Because that's the only way to really like touch the and make that emotional connection, and then our brain chemistry will help us in that. But you can use this kind of a formula in a blog post, or in a book, as we know, in a movie, in a podcast, on a social media post, on a social media video. So it doesn't have to be in a format of a video, for example. It can be any type of content. It's just like the structure is specific.
You told about a situation when the company like be just show only the positive side. And my next question, what should we do with our employer brand to be just the only positive, and to try to build the employer brand which everybody will like? Or we should be open and understand, for example, if we prefer to attract the people who are ready for hard working, because this is the reality of our company. or if we want to attract the people who is ready, for example, overcoming different challenges, because this is type of work. It means for us to be honest and to show the dark side of our company too. What is your advice? Because I have two opinions. Usually I heard two opinions from one side. We want to be like Google, but everybody loves us. We want to be love mark for everybody on the labor market. From another side, it's for me, it's closer. For me, it's what we should be honest, so should be authentic, and it's not okay. Like nobody, not everybody, love us. What is your opinion about it?
Well, there is no brand if it doesn't evoke emotions, and it has to evoke both positive and negative or neutral emotions so that it is strong. If it's something that where we try to please everyone, we don't have a brand. My answer is that the only way to really build a brand is to be honest and authentic, because it's in today's world where, you know, social media has now for over a decade made everything extremely transparent. It's very difficult to imagine any organization being able to very believably pretend like they were 100% perfect. No such thing exists. And perfection isn't very attractive. It's the flaws that make things attractive. So my opinion, obviously, on this is that if you want to be successful in building a real employer brand that actually creates competitive advantage for the business for what it should be doing, then you have to steer away from any sort of perfection, because that doesn't attract. So people are attracted to challenges and problems and failures and mistakes, but they're not attracted to those when those are ongoing, because we don't want to put ourselves into really difficult situations. But we are attracted to a world where those issues, those negative issues, are in some kind of control, and we are able to influence those. So as you mentioned, and as an example, that each workplace culture provides the sort of the framework or the ingredients together with employee experiences on what our employer brand should be. What are the characteristics of our employer brand? What kind of people should we attract? We should see our employer brand as like of a personality. And then we want to portray ourselves like it was the person, like our employer brand was the person, so that people can recognize whether they would feel natural, comfortable, and attracted to work in that kind of environment with that kind of a personality. So I think that trying to portray some kind of an illusion is, in my experience, the product of organizations working with product advertising agencies when it comes to employer branding. Because in product advertising and product branding, or service branding, but especially in product branding, it's really important to be able to create a very captivating brand personality for an object. And that can be anything, because the object is not gonna voice their opinion back and say like, well, no, I'm not that kind of an object, I'm this kind of an object. So it's based on make-believe, and the more delicious you can make it, the more appealing that product will be. But it doesn't work with employer brands, because this is based on real people, their workplaces, their experiences, and people will talk back. They will speak against, they will voice their opinion if they don't believe your brand, if that is not their experience. So then it will only hurt the organization if they want to do make believe, be too polished, or build this perception of something that they're not. And when you mentioned Google, I mean, we all love Google as an example, but nobody else should try to be Google because they will fail. Just be you. That's sexier, that's more appealing, that's more attractive, and that's authentic, and that's something that nobody else can copy. We can't copy Google. We can't copy Facebook or any other organization or brand in the world. We will fail miserably. So just, be you.
Now, my next question for you is about also storytelling and about cross-cultural issues. For example, if you work in different countries, should you use the storytelling one story for all countries, or should you have different stories for different countries, use different characters, different stereotypes? What is your approach for the companies who operate in different markets? For example, Europe and Africa, and in Asia, in Latam. What is your advice about storytelling?
Yeah, very good question. So I believe in employer brand, building employer brands sort of in a way that it depends on what the business needs from the employer brand. Sometimes the employer brand can be the whole or can represent the whole organization if it fits like that, if it's the authentic truth. Sometimes it could be that there's a different employer brand for, let's say, this software division, and then there's a different employer brand for other parts of the organization, or different divisions, or country related or country specific employer brands. That's what I believe in, because it has to be authentic. And if there are severe cross-cultural differences, we should try to be as authentic as possible. I always like to start with the idea of, let's find something that we have in common. Are there some elements that we have in common in all of these countries or all of these divisions that we could have like as the basic building blocks? That would be very helpful. In that case, we would then continue in a way like because employer brand, in my method and how I practice it, it's always aligned with business goals. So it could be that one country has completely different business goals. They could be in a completely different stage of life in their business life. So you have you don't get the most optimal employer brand value out of the work if you try to push something in there that doesn't fit. So I rather, make the brand fit the circumstances. It's also, to me, brand is in a way a story that it kind of develops and matures together with the company, together with the organization. It is influenced by leaders, by any like sort of strategic changes that influence directly how the business is led and what the culture is, how we work here, values, things like that. So it can also change over time, but obviously you should, try to keep some basic building blocks permanent. Well, sometimes if there are no common denominators between some countries, then the point is just to create then separate employer brands for them, because that's the only way how we can support the business and really drive value, return on investment for the business. So that's how I see it, and that's how I practice employer branding.
I know what you also work in the area of personal brand, and my next question about employee advocacy. Now it becomes very, very popular for companies for promoting employer brand, engage employees. What is your advice for companies who want to engage their employees as ambassadors for their employer brand?
Good question, and very important question, because we need our people to join the forces in sharing the employer brand story, and leveraging their experiences, because they are the social proof of the employer brand. So getting people to advocate, there are different ways to do it, but I think that the best practices are always based on selecting people that actually not just want to do it, but are very familiar and use social media already personally. Because based on my experience, usually employers run out of their available budgets for employee advocacy if they select and invite people who only like to be part of it, but are not used to creating content and being socially active on social media. So then they oftentimes end up building these high barriers between publishing content and or getting it done and getting it out there, and feeling like insecure, like I don't know if this is good, and then that's not worth anything. So I think that's one of the biggest sort of lessons that we've learned at Employer Branding Agency Emine with our clients over the years, that never only make sort of employee advocacy deals with employees that are already active on social media, and this is just an added bonus that they get some kind of a reward or some kind of a benefit, some kind of value for. And the second one is not to make it about you, but to make it about them, and this time about these employee advocates. They have built their audiences. If they're active on social media, they have some kind of a network that is used to engaging with the kind of content that they already share. So you have to respect that as an employer. If you want those audiences to hear about you and hear about your employee advocates' experiences in this organization, you have to let them use their own media the way they see best, and not to sort of meddle with it. What my advice is, though, when it comes to employer branding, is that you have to give them specific talking points. This is what we want to address, and we want to, these are the topics that this is how we want to be known. So these are the key talking points that we would like you to talk about, but do it the way you want to do it, and share your views, your perspectives, your experiences, your failures and mistakes and key learnings, or how we could have been better or whatever, but stick to these specific themes. So that's important. And the third important thing is that don't expect people to do it for free. If you're not going to pay for it, then you have to allocate part of their weekly work regularly to content creation, editing, publishing, and engaging with their audiences. This is easily hours of work a week, depending if they're doing video or regular post or taking pictures or whatever. And if you expect them to do this on their own time, then you have to pay for it. Simple as that.
Thank you for your answer. It's very, very interesting. It's very important for companies who decide to launch a employee advocacy program. Time is coming so fast, and I have my last question for you, Susanna. My last question is usual. Your three main advice for the audience who want to build a strong employer brand.
Okay, 3. All right. So the first one is to start with making it about them, not about you. Keeping that as your primary sort of guiding point all the time, what is in this that is relevant to them. And then the second one is to start with you have to have a proper strategy, proper employer branding strategy. And your strategy must include goals, objectives, key metrics, key talking points, your desired employer brand perceptions, target audience. You have to have very defined understanding of who needs to fall for you. If you don't have this understanding, and if you don't grow your understanding through various insights and just being out there and learning from your audience, what they talk about, what are they interested in, what do they post, because that's relevant to them, what do they comment in other people's posts, then that's the way to learn about what's important to them. And if you don't have this information, then you don't know how to make it about them and not about you. And then the third one is that you need to be consistent. So you need to share systematically about your key topics, your key themes, your key talking points every single week. This is not a work where you do it once a month. You have to do it multiple times a week, even multiple times a day in one social media. So it's very resource intensive. For which reason I would always recommend that start with one social media and try to adopt a habit where you post regularly, just once a day, but 3 times a day, then 4 times a day, then a week. So 3 times a week, and then but only once a day, and then sort of build up on that as you learn the routines and as you have older posts that you can repurpose and so on. So start small, make it bigger as your resources become more free, because you learn the ropes and you have content backlogs and things like that.
Susanna, thank you. Thank you for your time, for sharing your experience. We are waiting for your book.
Thank you.
I think it will be very interesting for all people who is working in employer brand industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tatiana.
This is podcast Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana Kovac. Stay in touch.